At parallel structure again in today's class, and I want to show you how you can use the ideas of parallel structure to get the answers correct in a very difficult grammar paper. This grammar paper is from the GMAT exam, which is an exam which the Ivy League universities in the States, it's an exam which they require you to pass if you want to go to those universities. And I think it's the best grammar exam out there. You learn a lot when you study for this exam, and you learn a lot about style, about how to improve your style, in particular by using parallel structure. Now, this is something I've spoken about a lot on this channel. It's something that I like a lot, and it's something that I have never, well, in the UK, I don't think we ever teach parallel structure. I think in the US they do. And I think that's because they do still appreciate that English is a subject that can be taught and not just something that you pick up by reading books and talking to people. I'm not so sure there's much on the UK curriculum in the English classroom. Certainly when I was at school, there was very little in the way of meat or beef in the syllabus. We learned very little about grammar. We had one lesson on relative clauses when we were about 13, and that was it. Yeah, I think that the UK syllabus is wanting in terms of information, in terms of volume, in terms of density. There's very little, when I was at school anyway, there was very little on the syllabus. There was very little in the curriculum. And so I'm not going to follow that curriculum. I'm going to teach like the Americans do. I'm going to teach grammar. And it's because I am convinced that it will help all English students and all English pupils to learn a little bit about things like parallel structure. So let's look at this. And parallel structure is not an easy topic at all, but thinking about parallel structure will enhance the quality of your English. And it will certainly enhance your essays, and it will certainly enhance your speech as well. Now, let's have a look. What do we mean by parallel structure? Well, I'd like you to actually watch some of my other lessons on parallel structure to find out what we mean. But generally speaking, I can sum it up as it's all about balance. When you have a list, or when you make a comparison, or when you use a correlative conjunction, all elements in the list or in the comparison must be equal. You can only compare like with like. You can only compare gerunds with gerunds. You can only compare nouns with nouns. You can only compare prepositional phrases with prepositional phrases. And that's the idea. So let's look at question number 1. We've got to choose out the correct answer from A, B, C, D, and E. And I have already highlighted a lot of the stuff here, and you can see that I've already shown you the correct answer actually in this one. It is C, which is what that Y means. It means yes, this is the correct answer. So why is C the correct answer? Let's have a look at the question first. Giuseppe Alessi, a world-class chef whose life has been a search for the genuine and the delicious in Florentine cooking, is an accomplished scholar, not only, and I want to draw your attention to this, not only. And why do I want to draw your attention to this? Because not only, but also is a correlative conjunction. And anytime you use a correlative conjunction, you are making a comparison between two things. Yeah. And so anytime you use a correlative conjunction, both elements in the correlative conjunction, the X and the Y, I usually call them, not only X, but also Y. X and Y must be equivalent. They must be the same kind of grammatical entity. Yeah, they must be either noun phrases or verb phrases. So let's check and see if they are the same in A. So in A, we've got not only unearthing, blah, 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 but also a poet. And when I put it like that, you might even be able to immediately hear that this is definitely wrong. You can't say not only unearthing blah, 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 but also a poet. And it should sound ugly. And it is ugly because we've got not only unearthing, which is a participle or a gerund. It's certainly a verb form. I'm not going to go into the difference between participles and gerunds at the moment, but let's call it a participle for the moment, not only unearthing. And I'm going to call it a participle because it's describing Giuseppe Alessi, yeah? And so let's call it a participle. So we've got not only participle, blah, 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 but also noun. And nouns and participles are not similar. They cannot be compared. They cannot be listed as similar entities. They are not similar entities. So A is definitely wrong, and it's wrong because the two elements are not in parallel. Okay, so I want you to think about it when you use a not only but also. And by the way, you will get high marks in your GCSE, in your A level, in your IELTS exam, in any writing exam. You will get higher marks if you're using things like correlative conjunctions. So this is why learning grammar is actually really useful for boosting your mark. Because when you learn about grammar, you learn about all the different tools that you have available and that all writers have available for when they create an essay or when they create even creative writing. Yeah, and so you're learning about the tricks of the trade. If you're not learning about grammar, then you're not learning how to improve your English, in my opinion. Okay, let's look at B. In B, we've got not only so in B, in fact, we haven't even got not only, we've got unearthing many of his recipes, both from medieval and Renaissance manuscripts, as well as a poet and a philosopher who draws. Now, notice here, we've got is an accomplished scholar unearthing many of his recipes. So this unearthing is describing Giuseppe Alessi. It's a participle still. But then we've got it with a description of Giuseppe that says who draws. So not unearthing, not drawing. Drawing and unearthing would be equal. And I think you can hear that. Yeah, drawing, unearthing. So if we change this one slightly, unearthing many of his recipes from both medieval and Renaissance manuscripts, as well as a poet and philosopher, drawing, that would be parallel. Yeah, but who draws? This is a relative clause. And before we had a participle describing Giuseppe Alessi, and now we've got a relative clause. It's not parallel. Yeah, and the main reason why we must use parallel structure here is the and. As well as. So we're saying he is X as well as Y. Yeah, and so he is, it's not got an is actually, but we've got Giuseppe Alessi unearthing, blah, 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 as well as a poet, philosopher, drawing. That's what we need. We need it as drawing and not as who draws. I'm sure you will agree that doesn't sound good. It's not parallel. Okay, so in C, we've got who unearths, blah, 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 blah. So we've got a world-class chef who unearths, blah, 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 as well as a philosopher who draws, blah, 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 blah. And you should be able to hear that that's really parallel. And why is it parallel? Because you've got two relative clauses. Yeah, we've got relative clause who unearths and relative clause who draws. And each time we've got a noun, a world-class chef who unearths, and then we've got another one, a poet and a philosopher who draws. So we've got noun phrase and relative clause describing the noun phrase. And that is what we want. We want all elements equal. Let's look at why D is incorrect now. So we've got who unearths many of his recipes, blah, 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 blah. But also, the problem here is that we haven't got the not only, but we have got the but also. So that's not allowed. Correlative conjunctions can't lose half their correlative conjunction. You've got to have not only X, but also Y. You can't just have but also Y, of course. I think that much is clear. Okay, and lastly, E, who unearths many of his recipes from medieval Renaissance manuscripts, a poet and philosopher drawing. So here you've got the participle describing poet and philosopher, but we've got the relative clause here describing first world-class chef. So I hope you can see that that's not allowed. That's, well, it doesn't sound very good. It sounds like bad style. And if you want to have good style, if you want to write essays that are unambiguous, that are powerful, that are clear, then please pay attention to the rules of parallel structure. You may break those rules sometimes, especially in creative writing and especially when it sounds good. But in academic writing, it's really helpful to follow these rules. And even in creative writing, it will often give you, understanding these rules will often give you a better sentence or, something which you think will hit the reader a lot harder. So please do continue your study of parallel structure. It's something that you never finish studying. There's a lot to learn in parallel structure. Okay, let's go on to a slightly different question. Number 2 is not really about parallel structure, although it certainly is about logical comparisons. Okay, so let's read number 2. Even though this isn't parallel structure, I'd quite like to do it because it's quite an interesting question. So in number 2, we've got unlike X, Y. And you'll notice that I very often like talking in terms of X's and Y's. And it's, I suppose, partly because I do like mathematics. I think it's a great subject. But secondly, I like to simplify. And I think X's and Y's make it simple. So we've got here unlike X, comma, Y, because we're making a comparison, a contrast between X and Y. And anytime we make a contrast between X and Y, the X and Y must be equal. This is parallel structure as well as logical comparisons. Yeah, so if you look at this sentence, let's read through it. Unlike that of earlier works on slavery, Blassingame's innovative study relies not on the records of white slave owners, but on the records of the slaves themselves, especially the 70 or so autobiographies and memoirs that have been preserved. So the first question that we ask when we see this A is, what does the that refer to? Yeah, this is a pronoun being used here. Unlike that of earlier works on slavery, what does the that refer to? I've got no idea here. I've got no suggestion even of what the that could possibly refer to. And so here we've got a problem with the pronoun. That is unclear. What does it refer to? It's not clear at all. Let's look at some of the other answers. Unlike that of earlier works on slavery, Blassingame in his... Okay, so here we're comparing. The problem is we're comparing unlike X, Y, and we've got that of earlier works on slavery. I still don't know what that refers to, by the way, so I'm still a bit confused by that, and I still don't like it. But let's say it's just like unlike earlier works of slavery. Yeah, like in C. Look at C. Unlike earlier works on slavery, comma, Blassingame. Now, you can't do this. You can't say unlike this book, comma, this man, because you are comparing a man and a book. And that's a really illogical comparison. How could you possibly compare something that has pages and a front cover and a back cover with something that has bones and eyes and skin and teeth? They're just simply incomparable. They're too different to compare. And so, nonetheless, this is parallel structure as well, I would say, because really we're trying to make sure the X and the Y are comparable, just like in parallel structure. Yeah, and so you can't say, unlike this book, Bob Dylan, yeah, unlike the Bible, Bob Dylan, it's not right. You've got to say, unlike the Bible, comma, the Torah, yeah, or something like that. Unlike the Bible, comma, the Quran, yeah. I'm not sure how to pronounce those books, so sorry if I get it wrong. But you could do that, certainly. Or you could say something like this, unlike Jesus, comma, Buddha, yeah, that's all right, because they're both people or gods or whatever, yeah, they're both comparable. Yeah, and that's the idea. So C is not okay. You can't say unlike this book, comma, Blassingame. In D, we've got it right, because here we've got unlike earlier works on slavery, Blassingame's innovative study. So we're comparing Blassingame's innovative study with other studies on slavery, earlier works on slavery, other innovative studies. So this is what we need. We're comparing like with like. D is correct. And E, again, we're comparing man with book. So you can see most of the problems there are comparing man with book. But also be aware that pronouns, they must refer clearly to something. And if they don't, then they're always going to be the wrong answer on this exam for sure. Okay, let's perhaps see if we could do one more question. This is quite a difficult one. So in the 16th century, the push for greater precision in measuring time was not, like more recently, motivated by complicated philosophical questions about the nature of matter and the universe, but the practical matters of navigation. Now, I hope you can hear, because when you study parallel structure for a long time, you can even hear it, that you need motivated by X, but by Y. In fact, I'd have not motivated. Oh, sorry, we have got it here. Not motivated by X, but motivated by Y. We need that, yeah? We need it parallel. We need not motivated by X, but motivated by Y. That would be the parallel form. So we can already see that A is wrong. Yeah, it's wrong. We've got to have it not motivated by X, not motivated by X, but demotivated, forced, compromised by, yeah, as long as there's a verb there, it doesn't have to be the same verb, motivated. It could be demotivated or forced or compromised, but you've got to have a verb, yeah, not motivated by X, but compromised by Y, yeah. Okay, so that's why that one is not parallel. Let's have a look at B. Being motivated by the practical matters of navigation instead of complicated philosophical questions about the nature of matter and the universe as it has been recently. Now, I just don't like here the past continuous passive, being motivated by. Surely we just want motivated by, yeah, not motivated by X, and not being motivated by. It sounds like it's happening. Well, it sounds like you're in the middle of that process, and we're not in the middle of it. It's a long time ago. We just want to say not motivated by. There is no reason for the past continuous here. Okay, so that's why we can get rid of B. Let's have a look at C. Motivated, not. So we haven't got not motivated. We've got motivated not by X, but by Y. Yeah, and so that's what, and here I've got it. Yeah, motivated not by X, but by Y. So that bit's good. However, if you've been watching these classes for a little while, you will know that that this exam does not like being used as a subordinating conjunction. It doesn't like plus clause, like they were more recently. It wants as they were more recently, because as is a subordinating conjunction in academic English, and like is a preposition in academic English. Okay, so that's why C's wrong, just because of the wrong use of like. And secondly, they should refer to push. So like it or as it was more recently would be correct, as it was, because we're talking about push. We're not talking about philosophical questions. The they should be referring to push. Yeah, let me just show you this in the question. In the 16th century, the push, blah, 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 for greater precision in measuring time was not motivated by X, but by Y, yeah? So we really do, as it was more recently, we need that. Okay, let's have a look at D. D is also not parallel because we've got motivated by X, not Y. So we need motivated by X, not by Y. Yeah, should be really clear now. Motivated by X, not by. So if we have a by in here, this one would be correct, but it doesn't have it in there, so it's not right. And now let's look at the correct answer. Motivated not by complicated philosophical questions about the nature of matter and the universe, as has been the case more recently. Notice they've used the correct conjunction, but by the practical matters of navigation. Motivated not by X, but by Y. E is the correct answer. So I hope that helps you all understand a little bit more about parallel structure, but there is no substitute for doing these questions. I want to just talk about these questions just to give you a little push in the right direction so that you can go out, you can go away and do these questions for yourself, because it's when you do these questions again and again and again that you start to understand what's meant by parallel structure. A lot of people won't understand it at first. It will take time and effort, but you will understand if you keep doing this excellent exam. And so I really recommend the GMAT paper, the sentence correction part of it, for improving your understanding, especially of parallel structure, but of many other things as well that are important in academic English. Okay, I'm going to have to go now. I've got some classes coming soon, but I will be around for the rest of the week, sometime, usually in the morning, but it could be any other time. So please click on the notifications bell if you want to come to the live class, but otherwise go to my website if you want to find these lessons. I must admit, I found out today that the website, the videos from odyssey.com aren't working. Odyssey doesn't seem to have the embed option working, but you can go to my Odyssey channel and find all of these videos, because the Odyssey channel certainly is working. So please, there are many ways to watch these lessons. Of course, it's in your hands to do so. I can't force you to do so, and I'm well aware that if you don't put it on YouTube, people just don't normally bother watching it, but that doesn't bother me. I'm not here for fame. I'm here just to teach English. Okay, so thanks everybody for watching. Hope